Boy, do I have a treat for you today. I'm chatting with my lovely friend Candice Coppola, and as the title of this episode suggests, we are deep diving into her most recent launch in her business. So Candice is a wedding pro and educator, and a crazy thing, you guys, Candice saw more than a 1,000% increase from her second launch of this program we're going to be talking about to her most recent launch. So really insane growth. And on this episode, Candice is sharing super openly and honestly, which I so appreciate her sharing without holding back, all about the major shifts she made in her offer and in her marketing in order to have that more than 1,000, almost 2,000% increase from one launch to the next. So whether you're launching something for the first time in your business or the third time or the 10th time, or you just have some kind of offer you're working on, there's something in this episode for you. Another cool thing, Candice is going to tell about herself and her business story in this episode, but a thing I want to note, if you're a service business and you're interested in how does someone scale up my service business to be able to literally sell it, like yes, selling your business for money, you need to really listen to this because Candice shares her story about building up her wedding planning business and then being able to sell it. And she's actually one of the only people I know in our online business world who has sold a business. And so it's really amazing. She'll talk about her transition from building it to starting something new. And also, if you're someone who is like, I want to sell something different than services, but I don't think it's a course. I really want you to listen in here because what Candice is selling isn't a course. It's something else. So be sure to stick around till the very end as well, because Candice is a long-time template customer of mine. We talked about that in the beginning of this episode. But at the very end, she's going to talk about her experience with my Show It website templates, and you really need to hear it. If you're on the fence or thinking about those at all, just tune until the end. What she says is so super sweet. So without further ado, here's my conversation with my friend Candice. Hey guys, it's Elizabeth McCravey, and you're listening to the Breakthrough Brand Podcast. Each week, I'll bring you workshop-style trainings that teach you how to stand out online, design success from the inside out, and create a breakthrough business. It's time to turn viewers into raving fans and design the business and life of your dreams. I'm so excited you're here. Okay, you guys, I have such a treat for you on the podcast today. I'm here on video chat with Candice Coppola. And Candice, before I let you introduce yourself, I want to say you're someone I've looked up to for years. I feel like you know that. But Candice, she is such a light and encourager in our online business space. And I have to tell like the fun fact, but you are my first template customer ever. Like before anything was live, you bought a template and you've bought others since then. And you have been such a cheerleader for my business and for so many other women as well. And so I really appreciate you and admire you. And I know everyone's going to get to see like why I admire you through this conversation, but I just had to say that before we start. So welcome.
Well, Elizabeth, that's so sweet. Thank you so much for that. I will not turn down those compliments. They mean a lot to me. I admire you so much too. I've watched the evolution of your business since I was the person who bought your first template. Yeah. Before it was even live, you sold me a template. So I was officially your first customer. And to see what you've done in your business and with your brand is very, very inspiring to me. And what I love most about you is that you're always putting yourself out there. You are just always present. You're always just available to your audience. You're always sharing really great things. I think you're innovative. And so you inspire me to step out of my comfort zone in a few things and do things.
Well, thank you. You're the best. This is going to be an awesome conversation. Yeah. Okay. So for those listening who don't know you, which I know actually a lot of my podcast listeners also listen to your podcast, but can you go ahead and share what you do, who you help, and how you help them?
Yeah, so I am a business coach and I help wedding pros build a profitable business with purpose. I'm also a podcast host. So my podcast is called The Power in Purpose. Purpose changed my life. And so I love having the opportunity to share how life-changing it is on my show. I'm a 2-time published author. I wrote 2 books and I'm a former wedding planner and designer. So that's a little bit more about me.
Yeah. And I love your podcast too. And we need to link that in the show notes, but I was on your podcast like forever ago now, but we'll
You
link to
were.
that. That's a fun conversation.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about, I know you do business coaching now, which is what we're going to be focusing on today, about like your incredible launch with that and the evolution of your program you're offering. But let's back it up to starting the event planning business and what that was like, and just the whole transition there, because I know a lot happened with you eventually selling it and all that.
Yeah, so I have a really fun story. It's an interesting journey. I don't think you get to meet a lot of people who've sold their business. And I know that prior to selling my business, prior to even having the idea of selling my business, I was always so intrigued of how somebody could build a business that another person would actually buy. So my journey begins back in 2007. I was 26. I had zero experience, zero connections. I didn't even finish college, and I decided that I wanted to start a wedding and event planning business. I was actually on the couch. I had just had my appendix removed. I was in this horrible job that I hated so much, working in a medical practice, and I just was not what I had envisioned. I was an art history major. I envisioned a life of like all things despite what I was doing. And so I had this idea, and I sat with it, and I worked on a business for about a year, writing my business plan, developing my brand, my website. This was way back in the day before there were so many things that are available to us now. And I was ordering books off Amazon when it was a bookstore, like business plans for dummies and all that kind of stuff. But I had launched my business in 2008 officially, and I was able to quickly grow it into a multi six-figure business in the first 2 years. And I owned that business for 12 years. I was full-time the day I launched. And I grew it into a multi-country business. I had a team. It was a huge, long story inside of there, but I eventually moved to Barbados, and I brought my brand here while it still operated in the States, originally from Connecticut. So we serve the tri-state area. And I got to work with hundreds of couples to help them celebrate moments that matter in their lives. I loved it so much. It was really my calling. I was able to write 2 books. I was featured all over the place. And while I was growing that business, I was also coaching wedding pros. And I think that was such an interesting journey. It happened organically. People would approach me, ask me questions. And for anybody listening who's ever been in the wedding industry, there are those emails every single day and all week long. Can I pick your brain? Can I take you out to lunch? And I decided that I was going to monetize that because my time was valuable and I wanted to help people, but I just wanted to be compensated for it. So I started a mentorship program while I was growing my business, and I did that 8 years alongside helping couples plan and design their weddings in excess of about $1 million. We did weddings. So we work with really high-end customers to help them design their events and their parties and their weddings. And during that time period, about 2 years before I sold my business, I started to just really recognize that I didn't have the same love for it that I did when I was 26, even when I was about 32. And it was just a nagging thing in the back of my mind that this just didn't feel right anymore. I didn't have the same passion for it. It started to become stressful. I was giving up a lot of my free time, my weekends. I had lived, 10 years, 11 years with no weekends off, holidays working. And I was just transitioning into a new period in my life where I wanted some more freedom. I wanted more flexibility. I wanted less stress. And so it took me some time to really come to terms that my purpose was changing, my business was changing, and that I probably was not the right person anymore to lead my business and to serve customers on this really important day in their lives. And when I came to that realization, the next step is sort of like, what do you do? Do you let it go? I mean, so much of your identity is in your business, especially after 10, 11 years. And I said, well, what if I could sell it? I mean, maybe I don't know the first thing about doing that, but what if I could do that? And I approached one of the women who's worked alongside me for 10 years. She really ran our US-based office after I moved. And I said, do you want to buy my business? She said, yes. So before I knew it, we were Googling like how to do this and then figured we would hire people to help us, which we did. But in October of 2019, we're almost coming up on the 1-year anniversary. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but in October of 2019, we signed the paperwork and we exchanged all the things, and my business was no longer my business. It was hers. She was the right person to lead it, to take it to a place where I just could not take it because my passion wasn't there. And I was able to then start focusing full time and doing what I really love, which is helping people build a profitable business with purpose. So that's how I transitioned in a really successful business and something that I really loved into something new.
Oh, I love that story. And the couple questions I thought of, like, were you building a personal brand while you were building the wedding business? Or was that like a complete transition of like, hey, here's my name. Y'all didn't know my name before. What was that like?
So I was really
Okay.
the face of my business for so long. And when I moved to Barbados, that started to change because I wasn't in the States producing.
Yeah.
But I had started building a personal brand back in 2011. I actually registered CandiceCoppola.com.
Okay.
And so I had started back then. And thank God I did, because it would have been so much harder to do what I've done now and make this transition without that personal brand, helping to elevate me, people being familiar with me, knowing what it is that I do and what I've accomplished.
Yeah, that makes so much sense to me, knowing that you started the personal brand building beforehand. I think that's so important because a lot of people, you never know if you'd have an amazing opportunity like you did to sell a business. And then when you transition to something else, not being just your business name is really important. Yeah. So, okay, you were already coaching women, wedding pros while you were doing your business. But then 2019, you transitioned to just doing that. Like, what was that like? Tell us about like the first version of the program you launched and all of that.
So after I sold my business in October, I launched this membership for wedding pros right around Halloween. It was before Halloween, but during Halloween. And so I had a very short window of selling the business and then jumping really head first into this membership site that I had created. And I had the idea of doing a membership site. I thought from a financial standpoint, it was sound. I thought it was interesting. I thought that it would allow me to deliver a lot of my knowledge and expertise. And so I launched Wedding Pro Insiders as a membership site. It was $129 a month. You could cancel at any time. And let me tell you, it was everything you could ever dream of having in a program, plus too much more. I really felt like I needed to show up and give people everything. And I learned a lot of lessons about that, which I think we'll talk about. But it was a mixture of coaching with business trainings, foundational trainings, the things that I would really teach in one-on-one mentorships. I decided to create some type of group offer, and I called it a membership. And so I was really successful in that first launch. I had limited expectations. I had never done something like this before. So I was just proud of myself for actually launching, because it took me 2 years to get to that Halloween launch of actually doing this. It took me 2 years to have enough guts to do it and to believe that I could do it despite not knowing everything of how to do it.
Yeah. So was it 2 years of developing the program or just 2 years of like getting ready to feel like developing it and all that?
2 years of feeling ready to develop it. Yeah, I think I started really diving in. I took Stu McLaren's tribe in order to help me figure out how to create a membership site. And that was in May of 2019. And I really started to put things together between May and then October.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. Okay. So the first launch, let's talk about that. Like, let's talk about the initial launch. And I know you've launched it 3 times, correct? Total. Okay. So we're going to be focusing the most on the most recent launch. And that's what you guys are seeing in like the headline of this episode. But let's tell us a bit first about like those first 2 launches, how they were different. What are a couple things you did? And then we'll get into all your like launch tips.
Sure. So the first launch, I did everything myself. I wrote all the copy. I did all the sales page design. I just really did everything myself. It was $129 a month, and I think we had 20 members sign up. So it wasn't a huge, gangbusters financial launch, but if you can keep people by serving them really well over time, you can really grow an incredible business. And I had hopes of having 100 to 200 people inside. And all of was my original vision for it. My second launch went well. It was a little bit less than the first. I raised the price by only $10, but we got some incredible women inside the program. And most of the women who joined are still with us today, which is really wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah.
So the first two launches were not really huge financially, but I was building something. I had a cushion for myself financially, so I wasn't counting on that money to start adding up just yet. So I was comfortable letting it grow slow, letting it just take root and see where it could go. But the third launch is where everything changed. Now, in between the first and the third launch, I actually hired a copywriter to write all my copy. So I had done that originally myself, which I think is really important to try to feel out your message and figure it out. But there does come a time where you need an expert to come in and really give you some advice on how to present your offer so it's more sellable. So she redid my entire sales page copy and then also some email sequence copy for me to make it more impactful, make it more punchy. And it's just always so great to have somebody else's eyes on those things.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you too, that it's important to like be able to give the copywriter something to work with. So it's awesome that you had already had members and had their feedback to work with, and then also probably some emails and like other things that the copywriter can do. Okay. And yeah. And 20 members, that's actually really impressive though, even for like the first launch. Like a lot of people be like, that's enough for me, like getting 20 members into a membership site. So that's awesome. And at that price point, everything. Okay, let's dive into the most recent launch. So you saw a 1,885% increase, which is like, what even is that? That's such a like huge increase there. And so your first launch, you went from, I forget what your first launch was, about $3,000
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, to 41,000 in this launch. So Candice, guys, is going to share some strategies with us that helped her do that, like the different things she did between each launch. And she's already given these to me, so I already kind of know what you're going to share and have a lot of questions with them. But let's dive into what the first like big shift you made was.
So the big shift that I made to start was I changed the offer. And I think it's so important to listen to your customers and really revamp your offer to serve them. So when I started Wedding Pro Insiders, I had these big ideas of what I thought people needed from me. And as the program became live and I was working with people and I was getting their feedback and I was seeing the transformations that were occurring, but also the problems that they still had, I was able to take that and really think about what my offer was. So I think too often we all get stuck in thinking that this is what people want. And instead, I want you to really listen and fine tune whatever offer you have, a course, a membership, a mastermind, so that it suits the customer and it's what they want. So I did a couple of things when I changed my offer. First, I upped the price. So I upped the price by 113%. We went from $139 to $197 per month, and it will continue to go up from there because in my mind, it's a high-priced offer. I also made people sign a 12-month contract. So originally, they could cancel at any time. There were some issues with that. I felt like people who could just leave weren't really as dedicated as if they had made a commitment. So this 12-month contract required people to commit to bettering their business and being a part of this for a longer period of time.
Yeah. Okay. Those are awesome. And one thing you said in the beginning that I want to like point back to is that you were focusing on what people wanted and knowing what they want. And I think so often as like the creator of stuff, we know everything someone needs, and then we try to sell them what they need instead of selling them what they want and giving them what they need, really giving them what they want and need. But like you can overwhelm a sales page when you tell every single thing you think someone needs.
We're going to talk about that.
I know. I think I'm kind of getting ahead of us here, but that's what it made me think of.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Absolutely. And that was something that I had to trip over the truth about during this process. Now, here's the deal. I would have never discovered all the things that I'm sharing with you guys had I not launched in the first place. Yeah. And so launching is about experimenting. It's about trying new things, and it's about listening and pivoting and narrowing things down and getting more specific. You can't do that until you actually do it first. Mm-hmm. So everything that I learned and how I've gotten to this stage were those two previous launches. And while they weren't financially out of the world, like, they didn't hit it out of the park, they still led me to this moment. So aside from having people sign that contract, I started calling my membership what it really was, a coaching mastermind. And I have to shout out Christine, blew by my copywriter because she was taking a look at, we were doing our meeting so we could launch for a third time. She was asking me questions and she literally said to me, dude, this is so what you are charging for, what you're calling this, like we need to change the offer and call it what it really is. Yeah. And so that's what we did. And that made a huge impact on the scalability of it, the sellability of it. It started to connect with people so much more. So I really started calling it what it was, a coaching mastermind.
Yeah. And it's so crazy because those words are so similar, membership and mastermind. Like people, they're even almost the same length. And people can think of that as like just interchangeable, but it does change the way people are seeing it. And I have a quick question with that too, thinking about the offer. People are getting coaching from you in like a group coaching format, right?
Yes, and they have since day one. Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes so much sense too, to call it a coaching mastermind. How often do you do the coaching?
So they get 2 office hours a month where they're free to pop in. The door to my office is open. And then they also get a dedicated hot seat. So every woman gets to be in the hot seat every single month. And we have several different days and times they can choose from to keep the groups a little bit more intimate. There are 36 women inside my mastermind. So it's a large group.
Okay, that's so smart of doing it so it's smaller group for that. I've thought about that before, of like when you get to larger numbers, it can be like forever waiting for your turn for the hot seat. Okay. Anything else from that first tip?
So I have 2 other points. I offered a pay in full option, which was great. There were a few women who decided to do that and they got a special financial bonus. They ended up paying less in the long run when they paid in full. That was great for some quick cash injection in my business. And then finally, I took down the add to cart and purchase. And what I had noticed in the previous 2 launches that were few people who added to purchased, but then backed out a month later. They canceled and they didn't participate. They didn't even really get going. I wanted to eliminate that. And so instead of just being able to add to cart and buy, I replaced it with an application system so that I could screen folks and really make sure it was the right fit for them. And also, that they were the right fit for us. But in doing that, I accidentally got so much data about what they were struggling with, what their problems were, and what they were looking to overcome. Now, I asked those questions because in order for me to have a conversation with them about it, I want to know where they're starting from and what they hope to achieve. But when you look at all those answers of all the women who applied, and we had so many women apply, that's all data that I can use in future copy, that I can use to talk about the offer. So it came in so incredibly well. I recently launched a quiz and we used a lot of that data in some of the results of the quiz.
I love your quiz too. I was on your website this morning and saw it. It looks really good.
Thank you.
Okay. With that too, thinking about applying, people like applying for stuff because it makes it feel higher value, more exclusive even, like, I think that's so smart of like, hey, you have to we have to see who you are and what you have going on before being in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the second big change you made.
So after I changed the offer, I thinned out the offer. I had operated from this belief that I had to show everything about what my offer has and what it does. So I like to say I built the megalodon of offers. It was like the biggest offer ever. I mean, the sales page was one of those sales pages where you're just scrolling, like it doesn't end. It just keeps scrolling and there's all these bullet points and, oh, you get this and, oh, you get this. And it's confusing. What I learned really quickly is that less is more. And I always love this quote by Donald Miller, if you confuse, you lose. And my offer was so confusing. So remember, my offer is made up of coaching, trainings, and community. But under each of those pillars, I had dozens of things they get. Everything from critiques to hot seats to office hours to personal one-on-one calls to all these things in coaching. I go live, I do this, I do that. Under trainings, we have blueprints and swipe files and workbooks and courses and all this stuff. So when you're looking at that on a sales page, it's really difficult to understand. Yeah. And people were really there to get a business coach. That's what they wanted. They wanted access to me so that I could help them do things quicker, better, and faster. But it was getting lost in all of these bells and whistles and bullet points and look what you get here. So I said to Christine, I think what we need to do is strip everything out and focus just on those 3 pillars. We do need to talk about you get a dedicated monthly hot seat and 2 office hours, but we stripped out all the other stuff. And what happened was really magical. People started to understand what it was all about, and they saw the on-demand business library. That's just what we call that. I didn't have to tell them what was inside. They saw it as valuable. It's something that they could go at their own pace on. They got a business coach, and they got a community of women to support them. That's all they wanted. Now, I should say that the beauty behind all of this is that when people joined, they still got all the things. They got the workbooks and the swipe files and the critique weeks and the guest experts. But now those things just come as a surprise. So I get to surprise and delight new women inside the mastermind, and also not feel on the hook that I promised so much in the sales page and always feel like I have to deliver on every promise every month.
Okay, that's such good advice. And for those of you listening who are service providers, that's another thing to think about of under promise, over deliver. Almost said that backwards. But I have always tried to do that with one-on-one clients of like, you don't have to tell them every single thing they're getting, but then you can surprise them with something like, as a graphic designer, I like to surprise people with like an email signature design. And I'm with you. I do the same thing with my template shop. I have long sales pages for the templates, but they don't actually detail out every single thing you get. It's more of like focused on, you get a website that's strategic, easy to use, that converts. So yeah, I really love that. Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, I think it's important. And so if you're listening and you have the Megalodon of offers as well, my suggestion is to really take a look at it and try to simplify it and think about what pillars people are really looking for. If you are a business coach like me, they're really looking for connection. They're looking for somebody who's been where they want to go and who can show them the way. They're looking for a guide. So talk about being their guide. How you guide them, you can reveal once they come into your orbit and sign with you, once they buy the product or invest in whatever it is you're selling. You don't have to show them every trick up your sleeve or everything that they get. And in fact, when you simplify, when you stop confusing, I think it really starts to connect with people. It was one of the biggest changes I made. And trust me, I was scared to take all that stuff out because I thought I had to show all these incredible things that you get. It's like those infomercials where they're really selling you a knife, but you get like a whole kitchen, literally a whole kitchen with it. It's like, and you get this, and if you find out, you get 4, and it's like all this stuff. It becomes overwhelming. Sell people just what they need and surprise them with more later.
Such great advice. And I have one follow-up question that you made me think of. With the on-demand library, is that something you made in October 2019 and that you just added to? And then my other question would be, how many, do you know if people are actively using that or if they're more focused on the coaching community?
That's a great question. So the on-demand library lives inside Kajabi. It's almost like a course. And when I
Yeah.
started Wedding Pro Insiders, it had absolutely nothing in it. And
Okay.
so I started creating things to go inside, basically things that I would teach all the people that I mentored. So foundational business principles. I started to release them month by month inside the on-demand library. Bit by bit, we'd work on them together. They were themed with the month. They'd get coaching and feedback. So it's something that I've built along the way. I no longer add to it every single month, but every time that I'm teaching, so this past month, we really talked about clarifying your offer. And I taught live, and I'll take those lives and recreate more polished videos from my talking points and then upload them to the on-demand library. I would say that 90% of the women are in there watching the trainings. They go
That's
back
awesome.
and watch them, which is great. So yes, it's very useful for them. And it means that they can learn from me without me having to be there.
Yeah. And that's, you know, with that, I mean, you're right. It sounds like very similar to a course that's in Kajabi. You could have sold it one time as a course for like, you know, a couple thousand or something, but say you're doing as a membership site with the community elements. That's why I was curious. It's like, I love it when like masterminds have that training side to it as well.
I agree. I think it's so valuable because it's on your own time and it's
Yeah.
things that you would learn from me regardless. So why hold them back from you and wait until you're in the right place in the mastermind to give it to you? Go and learn all the things whenever you're ready.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So that's the second thing was you thinned out your offer. And to recap, the first thing was that you changed it, then you thinned it out. So let's talk about the third thing.
So the third thing has to do with marketing. And listen, I emailed my list this launch without abandon. I just took off that jacket of insecurity, of feeling insecure about emailing my list, which I know so many people can identify with. And I just emailed people. I emailed them and emailed them and emailed them. And I did not care. I stopped worrying about bothering people. Like, I don't want to bother people. I don't want to, be in their inbox. I don't want to be selling. I don't want to bother them. I'll just tell them it's open and I'll tell them, hey, act now. 10 days later, it's closed. So I really released my insecurities. And it's so funny because I've had a successful business for so many years. I'm really not insecure about a lot. But for some reason, I had this insecurity about emailing people. And maybe it's because I have been, receiving emails from people for so long. And some of them are annoying. And so I think people are going to think I'm annoying. But I just let go of all of that. I was like, I don't care if you think I'm annoying. So I will tell you, many people unsubscribed from my list because I emailed. I think I sent out like 12 emails. I mean, I was all in. Every day I was emailing people. But I said, that's your loss. Like, sorry that if you want to leave, that's your loss, in my opinion. But so many women purchased because I was emailing. So that was huge for me. And listen, I had Christine Bluebot, my copywriter, writing all these beautiful emails for me, telling me what order to send them in, how many days in between. Like, she gave me this whole entire roadmap. And I didn't even send half of them because I was self-conscious about selling and being in people's inboxes. I got over that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like speaking to what you just said, like so many of us think that everyone sees everything we post because we see everything we post. And maybe you follow other people closely in your own industry. And so you see everything they do. But it's really important, especially during a launch, to have multiple touch points. So like you can't just be like, I'm going to post on Instagram twice and that's it. They saw it. You have to go all the places. So I'm guessing too, in addition to the emailing, where else were you sharing? I know you would have been sharing on Instagram. How was that like?
Yeah, so it was between emails and Instagram. That's
Okay.
really the only places I'm at. I also use Pinterest, and I've actually gotten women sign up for the mastermind through Pinterest, believe it or not.
You do a good job on Pinterest. You've pinned
Thanks.
about my templates and I've seen those there
Yeah.
too. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, but so I really use those three things. But in terms of really speaking to my audience, the best places for me to do that is Instagram and email marketing. I'm not really a Facebook person. In fact, I'm trying to get off the platform. It just doesn't serve me. So I'm really on Instagram and I'm really in email this go around. So releasing my insecurity about email really opened me up to speaking to my audience more. The emails I was sending, I was repurposing as Instagram posts. I was talking about it on Instagram. So the message was really cohesive. But here's what I want your listeners to understand. There are always going to be early adopters, people who see that Instagram post or that first email they sign right up. They're like, I've been waiting for this. I'm so excited. They are ready to pay you. Most people are not early adopters. Most people need to be wined and dined. They need to be courted. They need their questions answered. They need you to show up in a variety of different ways. They need to hear about it several times before they really give themselves permission to apply, to purchase, to do whatever. So when you are hitting people, and that's a kind of bad word, but you know what I mean. When you're hitting people over the head with your offer on Instagram, on stories, and in their inbox, and really where your ideal customers live, it should be wherever they are looking for you, you are able to warm up those people who need more than a first date in order to sort of buy from you. To really, you have to move that know, like, and trust factor that we hear about constantly. You can do that by serving them on more than one platform.
Yeah. And when, thinking about being like confident in your offer, if you really believe that your offer is going to help these people you're emailing and these people who follow you, then it makes sense to keep on talking about it so that the right people find you. And like you're saying, it takes multiple touch points because not everyone's an early adopter. I know I'm not. I'm the person who buys on the last day and the last hour that the cart's open for something because I like to think about it. And so I'm someone who appreciates reading every email, watching every Instagram live and all of that. So yeah, I totally get that.
Well, I'm in between. I'm an early adopter in some things because, as you guys know, I bought Elizabeth's template. I was the first person to ever buy a template.
You are an early adopter with templates.
I am, but sometimes I do need to I need some lubrication for other things, maybe higher priced offers or something that I'm unsure about, or I'm fearful that if I take this step, that really means something big for me and I'm scared. Yeah. So that's usually where I have some friction and resistance. But yeah, I mean, I really want your listeners, if they're feeling hung up on emailing their list, please get over that. As Elizabeth said, it's your job to make sure that people know that the solution exists to their problems. You have to be out there selling it and making sure that they see it so that they can get their problem solved, because that's what you do. You're a business and you solve problems.
Yes. So email everyone. Okay, I love that advice. Okay, let's talk about your next big shift you made.
So I asked for some detailed testimonials from the women who had been in my mastermind for many months. Listen, social proof is everything. I'm the person who doesn't want to bother anybody. And I'm also really independent. Like, I can really get things done on my own. So it's not that I don't need the testimonials, but it's like, I can sell this. I don't have to bother somebody with putting this together for me. I can do it, right? Mm-hmm. I want your listeners, if they're feeling sort of stuck on asking their previous students or the people they work with for testimonials, to work through that and to start getting feedback from the people that you've worked with so that you can take their words, their experiences, their transformation, and use that as a mirror for what's possible for a new customer who's looking for the same result. So I emailed all the women inside the mastermind and I said, would you supply a testimonial of your time here so far? I sent them to a Google form where I had mapped out questions that were really specific. One of which is a great question to add, is what would you tell somebody who's looking to join us? Yeah. Powerful question. And the responses I got back were so incredible. I mean, it really moved me to tears, a lot of them. It was just so transformational. And it was like, what I'm doing works. Like, I'm really helping people. It's why I'm here. I'm not here to make $1 million, although that would be excellent. But I'm really here to help people. It's why I sold my business. And I'm getting to do just that. I also think when you ask for testimonials of people who are currently in your orbit, they're still part of your program, them writing that helps to remind them of what they've accomplished since they've been working with you. So it's just a good way to remind themselves of all the great work that they've done and the things that they've really accomplished since they've been working with you.
Yeah, that's so true that it's also like does something for them. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, so you did in a Google form and you said one of the questions was what would they tell someone? That's such a good question who's thinking about joining. Do you remember any of the other questions you asked?
Yeah, so I asked them, what were you struggling with before you joined the mastermind? Mm-hmm. What results have you achieved since you've joined? And I did put in parentheses, like if you could share something that's tangible, like I 2x my income. Like those are obviously like really important. I also asked them what their favorite part of the mastermind was. So like what I think I did of what about it surprised them, or what about it just sticks out to them as being really valuable. And then of course that question, what would you say to somebody who's interested in joining us? Now my sales page was still kind of long, but I'll tell you what, the majority of that sales page is really testimonials. We took out so much copy and we just let the women speak for themselves about their results, their experiences, and what they would say to you, a person interested in joining.
Yeah, that's awesome. And something I want to point out that you just said, you guided them on giving you a testimonial. So I think a mistake a lot of people make, and I have 2 or 3 podcast episodes that I'll link to in the show notes about getting testimonials from your customers, using them in your marketing and everything. But a lot of times we say, oh, I worked with this person. Hey, will you write me a testimonial? And that's all you ask them. Or maybe it's even over Instagram DM and not in an email. But it's so important to guide people on how you want them to answer. Like you guided them literally on a give me a before and after and being tangible, which is something people don't maybe naturally think to do. And it's going to give you way more powerful testimonials. So I love that. And I love that your sales page was so testimonial heavy. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. And listen, guys, if you want to go check out the sales page, it's still live. You can go to weddingproinsiders.com/join us, all one word, and you can see exactly what I'm referencing right here and really follow along as you're listening to the podcast and actually see some of the things that we implemented.
Yes. Okay. That's perfect. I'll link to that in the show notes too. Okay. So let's talk about the last big shift you made.
Yeah. I launched for longer. Okay. I'm part of Tribe. I'm part of Business by Design. And there's these blueprints you're supposed to follow. You're supposed to launch with this and launch with that. For my audience who are wedding professionals, some of those things just don't work because the language or the system of it just does not work. So I leaned into what worked for my audience. And I also decided that I wasn't going to launch over a 3-day period. Anybody who's launched before and has done it in a short window knows how absolutely exhausting it is. And it really takes every fiber of your being. I've never imagined that something like that could be so exhausting. Working in weddings, sometimes I'd work 20-hour days on my feet to producing an event. Launching is more exhausting than that. So I decided to launch longer. I wanted to leave some room for people to join us. And because there was an application process, there was also this kind of screening process where they got to schedule a call with me for 30 minutes. We talked. I was able to use that call to learn more about them, but to also really sell the program. And I couldn't do that in a short window. I needed to give myself more time. I actually really didn't even kind of pick an end date. I was just feeling it out, leaning into my intuition. And the funny part about all of that was I was just really much less overwhelmed. I was less stressed and I made more money. Now, for some products, this might not work, but in my experience, that I really do believe this helped to contribute to my biggest launch to date.
Yeah, and it makes sense that the longer launch works when you have to talk to someone first with the application calls. And that was a question I had too with those. Were you doing a call with every person who applied or every person who got past the application? How did that work?
So everybody who applied, it was a good fit for, thankfully. So the sales page really did screen people well, I think. And everybody who applied got to schedule that 30-minute call. And I will tell you, it was a sales call. Yes, it was a sales call on both ends, right? So, I mean, they were getting to know me. I was getting to know them. And inside of that call, I would say maybe only 2 people who I had those calls with, I never heard from. They just ghosted me. So I imagine maybe the price just wasn't right for them, or it just wasn't the right fit, which is fine. But everybody who applied, who I had a call with, signed up for the mastermind. On the call. That's awesome. Signed up on the call. Yeah.
That's awesome. And were you doing the calls on Zoom or on the phone? How'd you implement doing them?
Yeah. So I, of course, automated a lot of this, right? Yeah. So they would apply. I use HoneyBook. And so they would apply on a contact form. They get an automated email. They go to a thank you page, schedule your call. They would go to Calendly. They'd schedule the call. They'd get an automatic response with a Zoom link. And then, this was all automated, which was great. And we met on Zoom for 30 minutes. And some days I had like 3 or 4 calls. I mean, you need energy, but I also gave myself windows of rest which I think is important during launches. So there were days that I was off limits. And, when I said this is the last day to book a call, it really became the last day.
Yeah. And it sounds too like you had done a lot of work in advance. Like you probably wrote the majority of the emails in advance. You had your sales page done. So it's like when you are in that 14-day launch, you were focusing on talking to people and promoting it.
Absolutely. But I did write a few emails, funny enough, on the fly. And they came from these calls. Women were asking really cool questions. One of the women inside my mastermind, she asked me during our call, she said, is this going to be like hashtags and stuff? Like, is that what you're going to teach me? Because I don't need to learn that. And I said, sister, I don't do it. That's not the kind of teaching I do. I'm talking like real business stuff. This hashtags is not business stuff. So just getting that question reminded me that some people might be like, is this light on actual strategy? Like, what is this? So I use that as one of the frequently asked questions. One of my objection buster emails, I added that.
That's awesome. And it's fun too, writing emails during launch week. I've always done that some too, because you end up, since you're so like in the weeds of your offer that whole time, you come up with interesting stuff like that. That's really fun. Yeah. So so that was the last thing. You launched for longer. I love all these tips. And if there's anything else, I guess a last question I'd ask for you on this topic is like anything else you want to add of like launching advice, anything I left out or that you want to share additionally that people would be helped by?
Yeah, the best way to launch is to launch. And so I've given you some tips here that have helped me in the third iteration. I'm excited to relaunch my program towards the end of this year, again, for the fourth time. But everything that I learned by doing. And Elizabeth and I are both part of a Business by Design. And James Wedmore says action breeds clarity. So in order for you to learn your own lessons, get more experience and get clearer and more refined, you actually have to do. You actually have to be out there launching. Whether you're launching and you don't know what you're doing, it's not about doing it right. It's about doing it first.
So true. And it gets better every time. That's awesome. Yeah. So when are you relaunching it? Do you have a date yet?
Interesting. So most of the women in my mastermind are from the US. So I'm trying to just pay attention to the election. And obviously that's an interesting time. I don't think I want to launch around that. Yeah. Probably afterwards. So maybe end of November, beginning of December, because my audience usually at the end of a calendar year is now more rested. Their events have been produced, although has really canceled most of their events. And they're usually looking to do things differently. A new year brings new ideas, changes. And so it's a great time for them to join a mastermind and get a business coach to start 2021 on a more positive foot. So I feel like that's really the kind of golden time to present the offer. Is also knowing when your ideal customer is more able to purchase financially, in the amount of headspace they have, where they are in their business. Is it their busy season or their growing season or their business building season? So knowing those unique rhythms that your audience has and trying to find the right time to launch.
Yeah, that's so smart. And it does sound like that'd be good timing for you, like end of the year. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, this has been amazing. And I love all these tips. It's so fun chatting about launching. So to close this out, I have a couple rapid fire questions from you, which I think I got this idea from your podcast.
Oh, good.
Because don't you do this? I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I did, but I don't do it anymore.
Okay. I remember when I was on, you did that. And I was like, I love this. Okay. So I have some rapid fire questions and then I want you to tell everyone where everyone can connect with you. Okay. So first question, your favorite business book that you recommend we all read?
Such a good question. Profit first, because if you're not making profit in your business, then you are not a business, you are a hobby.
Great one. Okay, next question. A tip you can give us for creating an engaged Instagram community. So you guys need to follow Candice on Instagram if you aren't already, but you do this so well of like the sharing and people interacting with you, reposting your stuff, all of that. So if you had to give one tip for growing not only a following, but a community, what would you say?
Stop trying to blend in and start standing out. People will take notice when you say things very loudly. And when you take a stand on something, when you are saying what nobody else has the guts to say on whatever it is, it could be something silly, right? Or it could be something more serious. But I think you need to stop trying to blend in or stop trying to be like others. And you really need to start using your voice and stand out.
Yes, I agree with that. That I've seen so much growth from when I started finally like just saying what I wanted to say and being opinionated with stuff. Yeah, I love that. Okay, next question. As a customer of M Shop, if someone's thinking about a template, I know you're a huge advocate for the shop and I appreciate that. So I'm curious what you would say to someone thinking about a template.
Oh my gosh, just do it. Listen, there have been many times where I sat down and said, I'm just going to design my site from scratch, please. And I'm pretty savvy, right?
You are very good.
Yeah, I've been doing web design since I was 15, and I am not 15 anymore, guys. I will not reveal my age, but I'm not 15. I would say just do it. I mean, I love Elizabeth's templates so much because, first of all, they're built for you just to launch with. So you don't have to do anything customized to them because they're that good. But also, there is the opportunity and flexibility to customize it to suit your own business and brand, whether that's colors or a unique canvas. She just lays it all out for you. And if you're not as experienced as me, she has a whole course that teaches you how to use Show It. She writes the copy, like basically her sales page template, you have to go and buy if you don't have a sales page template, because she literally leads you on how to write a sales page and just the copy that she has in the template.
You're the best.
You're welcome. I mean every word, though. I mean every word.
Well, and your site, I mean, so you've combined so many of the templates into one. You can't even tell what template it is. You use the Catherine template mainly, but you are like very good with design. I've customized it a ton. But it's a great example of like what all you can do, and your site's so beautiful and like unique to you. So people need to also check that out. Okay, last rapid fire though. A random business software or business tool, just something that you really love and use a lot that we should try.
Sure. Guys, this just falls right in line with the last question. I am obsessed with Hotjar.
Oh.
Have you used it before?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, you guys are in for a treat. So Hotjar literally records every single person who comes to your website. It records everything they do on your website, where they click, where they go, how they read, how they scroll. It is literally a recording of every visitor who comes to your website. It is so incredibly interesting what people do not pay attention to, what people are clicking to go somewhere where it's like just a picture that you didn't think to link, but they are using that to go to the next phase, how they get frustrated and leave, how they don't read your blog posts, how they're always, what they're searching for really. So I installed Hotjar on my website about a month ago. I used a free trial. The free trial is great. I think it's 14 days. It's all you really need to get going. And I invested in the full kit. I think it's like $50 a month to record every visitor, because what I'm doing is I am making real-time adjustments on my website where people are getting lost or where they're not seeing things that I want them to see, or I'm not helping them in the direction that I want to help them in to buy. So it is, honestly, I'm obsessed, guys. After this podcast episode, I'm going to load up my Hotjar and see what people are doing. It's so fascinating.
That I need to get that. Like, you've convinced me I'm going to do that today. That sounds like a turned up like Google Analytics. Is that how you describe it? Because it sounds similar, but that's so much more information.
Oh, you literally can see where somebody comes from. So Elizabeth has me linked on her site. People will come to my site, my homepage, because I'm part of her showcase, and they will look through my template. They'll go to certain pages. They'll see how certain things function, and they'll scroll to the bottom. They'll see the link for a little bit off on a template at the EM shop. They'll click that and they'll go and purchase. It like affirms their purchase when they come to my site. So it's very interesting to see. Yeah, I'm so excited to see how this works with sale pages.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go get that. That's incredible. And I've heard of it, but haven't heard many people talk about it. So you just convinced me. That's amazing.
Oh, so good.
Okay, so this was awesome. I feel like I could keep talking to you. And there's so many things that we'll have to have you back because you're an expert on so much. And it was kind of hard, you guys, when I was thinking about like, okay, what should I ask Candice to talk about? It was a tough decision. So this was incredible though. Will you tell everyone where they can go connect with you?
I would love to connect with your listeners. So I'm mostly on Instagram. It's where I hang out. I'm always sharing my plants, food, cocktails, Real Housewives, skincare. I'm a huge skincare junkie, guys. I would love for you to go follow me on Instagram. It's at Candice.Coppola. And please DM me and let me know that you're a listener of the Breakthrough Brand podcast so that I can follow you back. I follow people back. I'm not one of those people who has like a gazillion followers and never follows anybody back. And you can also learn more about me by going to CandiceCoppola.com. You can see one of Elizabeth's incredible templates, well, several templates fused into my website, and learn more about me. And if you're a wedding pro and you've been looking for somebody to help you in your business, I would love to connect with you. And my website has all the things, the podcast, my coaching, mastermind, all of that fun stuff.
Amazing. Yes. Okay. So everyone go connect with you. I will, and I'm going to link to everything you guys that we mentioned throughout this in the show notes, anything relevant. So you can find Candice through that too. But anyway, thank you. You're amazing. Thanks for being a guest.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the podcast this week, friend. I appreciate you being here. And hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I want to tell you about something. I would encourage you to check out my website template shop. Over on elizabethmccravey.com, you'll find Show It website templates, and they are easy to use, strategically designed, and created to help you book more clients and customers. Maybe your current website is really boring. I don't know, maybe it is, and maybe you don't want to hurt its feelings, but you know it's true. And your website needs to be strategically and intentionally designed in order for it to convert your viewers into raving customers. And that's what these website templates do on MShop. These are pre-made website templates built for the Show It platform where you can plug and play your content into the template with ease and then get started with a website that is made to actually make you money. Isn't that what we all want, right? So go shop the templates at elizabethmccravey.com/shop. That link is also in the show notes. And don't forget that you can actually subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening so that you never miss an episode. And I would so appreciate it if you left a rating and review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or even just share it with a friend. It's a great way to support the show and then give us your feedback. So thanks so much for listening.